Just give us a bit of a sense of what the scene is like this morning in Gaza, and specifically in the area you're in, which is, from what I understand, the western side of Gaza City.
Good morning. We had passed a very difficult night. You know, I'm 57 years old, and I have lived wars in 1967, in 1973, two uprisings in the Palestinian territories, and three military offensives that Israel had waged on the Gaza Strip since 2007. And last night was the worst ever I have ever seen. You know, I live in the western part of Gaza City, and just a couple of 100 meters east and west and south of the building where I live, you know, there were more than 50 bombs, 50 explosions that, you know, I heard while I was in my house. Not only I heard, also the whole house was shaking. It was like an earthquake. And as I told you, it is the worst ever airstrikes and bombings on Gaza that I have ever seen. You know, I followed up what's going on to see what are the places that had been bombed overnight at pre-dawn and early this morning. And I heard that around 3 or 4 buildings were suddenly bombed and leveled to the ground, where the 3 or 4 buildings were taken down. And we followed up with our sources, with medics and with witnesses in the neighborhood. And they told me that there are many civilians are buried under the rubble of the destroyed buildings.
Yeah. So in terms of what you're hearing around the political leadership and what direction they're looking to take at this point, whether there's any visibility on a ceasefire?
Well, this is the hope that now both sides in Gaza and Israel are hoping for a ceasefire, because in both sides, civilians in the Gaza Strip and in Israel are the ones who are paying the heavy price. So I hope that the politicians, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and, you know, Hamas leadership in the Gaza Strip would reach soon a ceasefire through a third mediator. Usually in the previous military offensives Israel waged on the Gaza Strip, Qatar, the United Nations, and basically Egypt were playing a role to convince the two sides to reach a ceasefire, to avoid civilians more tragedies, and to avoid civilians more death and destruction. Now, all signs are showing that we are still a little bit far from a ceasefire or a calm agreement between the two sides. Apparently, Israel has a bank of targets, and it is still carrying on with hitting and targeting those targets for Gaza militant groups. No one knows when this, bank of targets is going to finish, is going to be over.